United States Motocross Nationals.
In all of motorsports, nothing matches the rough and tumble action of motocross. It is often referred to as the most exciting and physically demanding sport in the world. Stay tuned and you'll see why. The AMA National Championship Motocross Series is coming up next.
Welcome to this look back at the 1991 AMA National Championship Motocross Series. Gainesville, Florida, Gatorback Raceway, the traditional opener of the series. The skies were clear, the track was in excellent condition, and a huge crowd was on hand. Carl Holman talked to some of the pre-race favorites.
So I said you're one of the favorites today. Who do you look to be up there with you?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, the guys on the Honda team are going fast. You know, the guys on the Cowie team, there's not as, a 250 Suzuki rider this week due to some injuries. But, I feel like I'm one of the strongest out there and feel like I can win.
While Bradshaw is looking for his first ever national championship, Jeff Stanton of Team Honda already has recorded 4.
Based on last year, who do you think is going to be up front with you today?
Hopefully nobody. But Damon's riding well, John Michelle, Jeff Ward.
Very good.
Jean-Michel Bale broke his wrist while contending for the 1990 125 championship.
How is the wrist, the arm this year?
Oh, now it's perfect. You know, I have an injury, but now is everything is okay. My arm is feel very good, and I just try to don't think about and just try to ride wide open.
Riding wide open has long been a trait of Kawasaki's Jeff Ward. He's won every national championship there is to win in outdoor motocross. He's back one more time.
Who's going to be up front with you?
Well, there's a lot of riders. Of course, my teammate Matasevich, Bale, Stanton, Bradshaw. I think us 5 right there are going to be the race all year long.
The race all year long got underway at Gatorback Raceway. We're going to pick up the action in Moto number 2. In the opening moto, it was Jean-Michel Bale taking the win. Jeff Stanton finished in the number 2 position. Then came Jeff Ward in 3rd. 4th place went to Damon Bradshaw. Those are the riders we looked at the outset. The gate has been dropped. Moto number 2 is underway in the 250cc class. Leading the pack, just like he did in Moto number 1, is rider number 8, Jean-Michel Bale, followed by Jeff Stanton. Then comes Jeff Ward. Rider number 7 is Jeff Matasevich. This track at Gatorback Raceway has long been a favorite of the touring pro riders. It's full of sand, it's full of hardpack. There are some rocks sticking up on the back section. There are up and down elevation changes, left turns, right turns, and in general, it's a very technical and rough motocross track. In the opening moto, Jean-Michel Bale took the hole shot. Jeff Stanton put the pressure on Bale, but was not able to make the pass. Gradually, Bale pulled away, Stanton settling for the number 2 position. In Moto number 2, Stanton was having no part of the Moto number 1 sit back and take second syndrome. He followed and put the pressure on Jean-Michel Bale right from the drop of the gate. This is the low portion of the racetrack. From here, the riders will take a right-hander. They'll head uphill to the finish line jump. You can see the sand is very soft, very deep, and it is treacherous riding. Jeff Stanton, a good line out of that pit, continually gained on Jean-Michel Bale throughout the second moto. Eventually, Stanton made the pass to take over the number 1 position from his teammate, Jean-Michel Bale. So Jeff Stanton now at the midway point of the moto leads Bale, who is running in the number 2 position. Bale comes storming right back with an inside line, an incredible charge and ride on the part of the Frenchman, but to no avail. Jeff Stanton on the outside portion of the racetrack had the drive at that point. He grabbed a big handful of throttle and regained, or held on, I should say, to the number 1 position. Bale was not going to go away throughout the moto. He kept the pressure on Stanton. sometimes putting a wheel on the inside, even the outside, to let Stanton know he was there. Stanton could not afford to relax, not one little bet. Had he done so, the pass would have been made. At the outset of the 1991 season, Jean-Michel Bayle, the two-time world champ, made his intentions clear. His number one priority was the Supercross title. Number two, he was going after whatever wins, whatever titles he might collect in the Outdoor National Championship Series. Up and over the top again of that big, long, driving finish line jump in the soft sand. Jeff Ward, meanwhile, circulating in the number 3 position, just as he had in moto number 1, was looking calm, cool, and collected. Appeared to be running very, very well at that point in the race. He was not gaining on the leaders, but again, he was not dropping that far off the pace. He was always there and in position, should something happen to the leaders, that he could have been a challenger or contender for that number 1 position. Again, up and over the top of that finish line jump, and here is what happened to Jeff Ward. From this spot, Jeff Ward picked himself up and would ultimately finish in the number 8 position in moto number 2. Here's a replay of what Stanton and Bayle were doing off that finish line jump. Now, nearest the camera is Jean-Michel Bayle, and you can see Stanton with that incredible drive. He gained about 4 bike lengths every time they mounted a charge up the finish line hill to take over that number 1 spot. That's where he did the actual passing and ground gaining while he was back in that number 2 position. From that point on, it was a matter of hold on, grit your teeth, and take everything that the rough Gatorback track could throw your way. Stanton did it admirably to take the win in moto number 2. Looking at action now on the final lap. Lap riders moving out of the way. They want no part of the charge being put on by Stanton and Bayle. Around the soft sand one more time today. And Gatorback will go into the record books. The checkered flag. And round number 1 of the AMA 250cc National Championship Series is over. Here's a look at the way they finished in the second moto. It was Jeff Stanton coming out on top, followed by Bayle, Damon Bradshaw. Matasevic finished 4th, and the top privateer was John Dowd. Bragging rights for overall honors of the day went to Jeff Stanton. He finished in the number 1 position. The tiebreaker was his win in moto number 2. Then came Bayle, Bradshaw, Jeff Ward, finishing in a number 5 position. John Dowd, the privateer. From Florida, the Sunshine State, round 2 was in Sacramento, California, and at least for this particular date, it was nothing but a rainy state. The rain started falling a couple of days prior to the 250cc National Championship event, was still falling the day of the event. Here's a look at the point standings coming out of round number 1. Bayle and Stanton tied with 47. The two of them would contest for this title all season long. Here's a look at the racetrack. Now, this is during the practice session. When this was over, the AMA rerouted a portion of the track to get rid of some of the mud, and more than the mud, they got rid of some of the water that was flowing, and it was flowing at such a rate of speed that it would actually sweep the motorcycle out from underneath the riders. 125s and 250cc's all day long had their share of problems. Good number of the riders wanted to call it a day and say, let's go on with our business and maybe race on Monday or skip this round altogether. The AMA decided, though, that they would race and they would have just 1 moto in lieu of the 2. So only points being paid in 1 moto, and the moto would decide the overall winner for the day. It was still raining when the gate was dropped for the start of that points-paying and cash-paying moto. The 250 field of riders head toward corner number 1, the deep water and the mud of the Prairie City Off-Road Highway Vehicle Park. Blasting to the front, rider number 7, Team Kawasaki's Jeff Matasevic. Jean-Michel Bayle tucked in behind Matasevic to take over the number 2 position. Let's watch some of the water-filled, mud-spraying action from Sacramento, California. The 250cc National Championship Series would consist of 7 races. The riders that do the best most consistently throughout the season are usually the riders that finish on top. The key is obviously consistency. A rider needs to score points in every moto possible. Still on the first lap at Sacramento, Matasevic, Bayle. Then comes Larry Brooks, John Dowd, rider number 35, rider number 6, the Suzuki of Mike LaRocco. Number 11 was Damon Bradshaw. Then came Jeff Ward. Missing, and he was well outside the top 10, Jeff Stanton. All of the favorites, all of the riders that are involved in the 250cc National Championship would be affected by this single day of racing. Damon Bradshaw was the first to feel the brunt of the water and the mud. He was out. Bradshaw was joined by Jeff Ward in the deepest part of the track. Jeff Stanton, rider number 1, meanwhile moving gradually through the pack from a terrible start. Bale had taken over the number 1 position. He was putting distance between himself and the rest of the pack. The European came to race, and race he did. In anticipation of the scorekeepers having trouble finding the numbers on the motorcycle, Bale had erected a little tent on top of his helmet. His number was printed on the tent, but more importantly, it was an identification mark for the scorers to use. Watch the middle portion of your screen. That's Mike LaRocco. The raging current took his bike out from underneath him. LaRocco was quick to react, holding the bike upright. It never fell into the water. He was able to continue. Rider number 7, Jeff Matasevich, makes the pass, and he too puts one more lap in the book. Jean-Michel Bale, meanwhile, was slowing the pace ever so slightly. He was being very cautious to ensure as much as he possibly could a finish. Look at that lineup. Jeff Ward, Jeff Stanton, there's Jeff Matasevich. 3 factory riders that are going to call it a day in the same mud hole. Meanwhile, toward the end of the moto, John Dowd, rider number 35, the privateer that finished in 5th place in the opening round of the season, was beginning to close on Jean-Michel Bale. With just a couple of laps remaining, Dowd had the Frenchman in his sights. He went to the outside as Bale momentarily stalled his motorcycle, and Dowd made the pass to take over the number 1 position. From that point, it was a matter of holding on and keeping it upright. Dowd, an experienced mud rider from back east, had no problem doing both. The Chicopee, Massachusetts rider on his pro circuit Honda would take the checkered flag, earning not only top privateer honors for the day, as he had 1 week earlier, but overall honors as well. For Jean-Michel Bale, the factory ace from France and 2-time world champion, it was a matter of survival. All Bale had in his mind was to finish, gain maximum points, and take over the number 1 position in the 250cc National Championship standings. The checkered flag was out. Jean-Michel Bale will finish 2nd. John Dowd will take the win. The one-moto format at Sacramento meant there would be no second chance for the factory stars who were left in the mud. Dowd wins it, Bale 2nd, LaRocco, Jeanette, then Smith. Bale and LaRocco were the only factory riders to finish in the top 20. As the series headed to High Point Raceway in Mount Morris, Pennsylvania for round 3, Jean-Michel Bale was securely on top of the points leaderboard in the chase for the 1991 National 250cc title. He had 69 points ahead of Dowd, who was in 2nd. The privateer had 56. Then came Stanton with 47. Then Larry Brooks 44. Damon Bradshaw rounding out the top 5 with 38. With 5 rounds remaining in the 250cc National Championship Series, anything could happen. But for all of the stars, say one, Jean-Michel Bale, it would be an uphill battle. Let's check in on the action at High Point Raceway. This is moto number 1. Leading the field out of the first corner, rider number 11 aboard the Yamaha is Damon Bradshaw. He's followed closely by the defending champion, rider number 1, Jeff Stanton. Then comes Jean-Michel Bale. The Frenchman would later say, I followed the guys up front, meaning Bradshaw and Stanton, to see what they would do. They were riding at such a ferocious pace, I just felt that one of them would crash and I would be able to make the pass without endangering myself. They were going very, very fast. Indeed they were. They swapped leads. They were side by side throughout a good portion of the moto. Here, a sharp left-hand U-turn. They'll head into a series of jumps going down to the lower portion of the High Point Raceway. At this point, Stanton has taken over the number 1 spot. When they emerged, though, Bradshaw had it back. The Yamaha rider was not about to be denied in moto number 1. Stanton did everything he possibly could do to take the win, but it would be to no avail. Again, to the inside goes Stanton. And again, Jean-Michel Bale, as Bradshaw turned on the power and kept Stanton behind him. Jean-Michel Bale watching from the number 3 position. With a huge points lead in the standings, Jean-Michel Bayle was not about to risk life and limb at this point in the series. He had a championship to gain, and the results of one moto were not going to affect that title ride. Lap after lap, Stanton and Bradshaw pounded the Mount Morris Raceway. Stanton again takes over the #1 position, with Bayle back in third, watching the action out front. He would stay there throughout the afternoon in moto #1. Bradshaw had to be wondering, what do I have to do to put this Honda rider away? Each time he did, each time he gained 2, maybe 3 bike lengths, Stanton would come right back, reel him in, make the pass to take over the #1 spot, shoving Bradshaw back to second. Late stages of the moto, Stanton continues to lead Damon Bradshaw. The crowd at Mount Morris Raceway were watching some of the finest motocross action ever seen. On a downhill portion of the racetrack behind the trees, it was Stanton leading as they disappeared, and Bradshaw taking over the #1 spot behind the trees. He emerges as the leader one more time in moto #1. Final stages of the moto. It's still Bradshaw being closely pursued by Stanton. Unbelievable race action in round 3 of the AMA National Championship Series. It was not until the final lap when Bradshaw finally pulled away from Stanton. You decide, did Bradshaw have something left, or did Stanton say, take the win, I'll come back in moto #2 for the overall honors of the day? Team Yamaha's Damon Bradshaw, the teenage sensation, takes the win in moto #1. Here's a look at the point standings after Mount Morris. Bayle on top. He had moto finishes of 3-4. Stanton took the overall win. He's in second place now in the standings with moto finishes of 2-1. And it was Bradshaw, second overall at Mount Morris, moves into the #3 position with moto finishes of 1-2. From Pennsylvania, the series traveled west just a couple of states to Michigan and Redbud Raceway in Buchanan. It was a hot and very humid day. We're going to pick up the action in moto #1. Here they are on the starting line just prior to the start of the moto. It's Jeff Ward, #3, Matasevich, rider #7. Of course, on the line, we'll look for rider #8. That's Jean-Michel Bayle. Stanton sporting the #1 plate. And the final contender of the series, rider #11, Damon Bradshaw, the teenage sensation on the Yamaha. At the start of the opening moto, Jeff Stanton took the hole shot. Behind him, the pair of riders that, along with Stanton, had provided most of the excitement throughout the season, Damon Bradshaw and Jean-Michel Bayle. Still on the opening lap, watch what happens as Bradshaw cooks it a little too hard in the corner. He gets wide. Jean-Michel Bayle goes to the inside to take over the #2 position. At that point on lap #1, it was a pair of Hondas out front. Stanton followed by Bayle, then Bradshaw. For the second week in a row, motocross fans, and there were a lot of them at Redbud, were enjoying some spectacular motocross action. The opening moto at Redbud signaled the halfway point of the 1991 250cc National Championship season. It was argued that Bayle, in charge of the championship chase with a rather large points lead, did not give his all 100% of the time while racing the Outdoor National Championship Series. Well, it may or may not be, but Bayle was in contention week after week. Here again, he is following as Damon Bradshaw found a great line, not only past Bayle to take second, but swept by Jeff Stanton to take over the lead. Watch again. Here comes Bradshaw from the #3 position. He moves to the inside of Stanton and outside of Bayle. Splits the pair of Honda riders to move into the #1 position, and we're still on the opening lap. It's Bradshaw, Stanton, and Bayle. Stanton from nearby Sherwood, Michigan, was easily the crowd favorite. The Honda rider, the defending national champ in the 250 class, had raced at Redbud on numerous occasions, both as a professional and as an amateur. He had enjoyed many winning outings as an amateur racer, but never as a professional. He was looking for his first ever home state national championship win. Bradshaw, meanwhile, was doing everything he possibly could to keep that from happening. It was Matasevich, Ward, and Mike LaRocco aboard the Suzuki, rider #6, running in the second group of riders chasing the leaders. All of a sudden, Damon Bradshaw did not come around. On the back part of the racetrack, out of sight of the cameras, Bradshaw had fallen. He was back in the #3 position, being pursued by Jeff Ward, rider #3. Ward was in fourth. In fifth, it was Mike LaRocco, rider number 6 aboard the Suzuki. Meanwhile, at the head of the pack, Jean-Michel Bayle picked up the pace slightly and was putting the pressure on Stanton. Stanton responded with a handful of throttle to hold down the number 1 position. But he knew that Bayle was there. Any mistake on the part of the Michigan rider, and Bayle would move into the number 1 position. As long as Stanton was able to control that spot, as long as he kept up the pace, as long as he made no drastic mistakes, then Bayle would be content with the runner-up position. He was still after that championship. This was round 4, 3 to go, and Bayle was playing it smart. Late stages of the moto, Damon Bradshaw began to close on Jean-Michel Bayle while Jeff Stanton was rocketing away from the rest of the field. Then Mike LaRocco, rider number 6, showed signs of a malfunctioning motorcycle. He was in 5th place. Would he be able to hold the Suzuki together? Stanton took the win. Moto number 1 was his to the delight of the Redbud crowd. Let's take a look at the top 5 finishers in Moto number 1. It was Stanton, Bayle, Bradshaw, Jeff Ward in 4th. Mike LaRocco held on for 5th. Second moto, it was Damon Bradshaw, followed by Bayle, Stanton, Mike LaRocco, and Dubach. The overall win went to Damon Bradshaw, rider number 11 aboard the Yamaha. Here are the point standings after 4 rounds. Bayle with a commanding lead, 151, followed by Stanton with 139. 130 is Bradshaw, then Larry Brooks. Jeff Ward rounds out the top 5 with 94 points. As the series moved to Axton, Virginia and Lake Sugartree, Bayle had yet to win an overall event. Jeff Stanton had won a pair of them. John Dowd, the privateer, had earned 1 victory, and Damon Bradshaw won. Yet it was Jean-Michel Bayle high atop the leaderboard with a huge points margin. At Lake Sugartree, fans would be treated to more spectacular motocross action on the hottest day of the motocross season. Temperatures leading up to Lake Sugartree had been rough. Conditions had been tough, but the heat and humidity in Axton, Virginia were the worst of the year. Moto number 1, it's Jeff Ward, rider number 3, his first hole shot and first lead of the season. Back in the pack, several riders down, none of them contenders for the title. Exiting the trees about corner number 4 at Lake Sugartree, it was Jeff Ward, followed by Stanton, then Matasevich. Back in the pack just a short ways came Jean-Michel Bayle, the series leader. And watch what is coming up for Jeff Ward. When he disappeared, he was out of control. When he reappeared, he had lost his motorcycle. Ward quickly ran back to his mount, but the damage was done. Ward was uninjured, but he was out of contention in Moto number 1. Meanwhile, it was Jean-Michel Bayle, his teammate Jeff Stanton out front. The 2 riders had been beating up on each other throughout the opening rounds of the series. Lake Sugartree would be no exception. The early leader was Jeff Stanton with Jean-Michel Bayle in tow. Bayle had been taking heat up until this point for not winning, for not risking life and limb and body to take a moto win or to take an overall win. He was accused of coasting. Why not, says Jean-Michel Bayle. The championship was at stake. A smart rider would do exactly what Bayle had been doing throughout the year. Still, the critics were not pleased. Jean-Michel Bayle responded, making the pass on Stanton and taking over the number 1 spot. Bayle was out for business at Lake Sugartree. Stanton, though, refused to give up. The defending champion in the 250cc class was not about to be denied without a struggle. The championship points race would boil down to whether or not Jean-Michel Bayle suffered any kind of bad luck. Stanton was going to force the issue every inch of the way. He made the pass to regain the number 1 spot. By keeping the pressure on Jean-Michel Bayle, it was Stanton's hope that he would create some kind of a pressure situation that Bayle would react to and experience some kind of difficulty. What Stanton needed to be a factor in the title chase was for Bayle to lose points on a moto, to score no points just as Stanton had scored no points in Sacramento, California at round 2 of the series. With the opening moto at Axton drawing to a close, Bayle regained the number 1 position. Stanton stayed with him until the final lap when he dropped off the pace. Bayle took the moto win, followed by Stanton in second. Here are the point standings after round 5. In the second moto, the checkered flag fell to Jeff Stanton. He picked up his 3rd 250cc national championship overall win of the season. 5 down, 2 to go. Round 6, Kenworthy's Park, Troy, Ohio. Time was running out for the field of 250cc riders. Team Honda's defending champion Jeff Stanton from Sherwood, Michigan had closed the gap to 10 points. With just a little help from Jean-Michel Bayle, with a little good luck coming his way, he would again be a factor in the points chase for the 1991 250 title. Moto number 1, let's pick up the action at Troy, Ohio. The 40-rider field thunders toward corner number 1, a right-hander. Watch what happens. A massive pileup back in the pack. Involved were two key players, Jean-Michel Bayle and Damon Bradshaw. Jean-Michel Bayle was up and headed toward the mechanics area, where the Team Honda mechanics performed some minor surgery on his Honda and got Bayle back into the action. Damon Bradshaw, however, would be out for the afternoon. Meanwhile, at the head of the pack, it was Larry Ward, Jeff Matasovic, and holding down the number 3 position was Jeff Stanton. It would be Stanton's opportunity to gain back the points he lost in Sacramento. With one event plus one moto remaining, it appeared the championship would go down to the wire. In the early going, Stanton being cautious as he stalks the riders in front of him. He wants to make the pass. He wants to take the win. He wants to garner as many points out of Kenworthy as possible. But more than that, he wants to finish. But look what happened. All by himself, Stanton, through that rough section of whoop-de-doos, bailed off his Honda, perhaps taking it too easy. Perhaps that altered the lines that he had ridden in practice. We'll never know. In any event, Stanton was down on the ground, and he was down hard. His elbow was injured. Stanton would go on to finish. As we watch a replay, we'll see Stanton appearing from the left side. There he is. He is already off the motorcycle, hitting very, very hard. He's driven into the ground. He rolls away from the bike. He was back up and got back into the moto. He would finish 6th in moto number 1. He would not start moto number 2. Meanwhile, Damon Bradshaw, another injury. We told you he did not finish either moto. Here's Bradshaw holding his arm, his upper body. Bradshaw is going to pull off the track. He will garner no points in the Kenworthy round number 5 of the 250cc National Championship Series. The Yamaha Ace had been running in the number 3 position at the time, and with a break or two was close enough to strike, was close enough to overhaul Jean-Michel Bayle for that points lead. It was not to be at Kenworthy. Bayle, meanwhile, picking himself up back into the fray. He's at racing speeds now. Would cruise the pack and end up in moto number 1 after surviving that first corner crash and a trip to the mechanics area in the number 5 position. The win, though, would go to Suzuki rider from Society Hill, South Carolina, rider number 10, Larry Ward. Finishing in the number 2 position in the opener of 2 motos at Kenworthy would be number 7. That would be Jeff Matasovic. In the number 3 spot in moto number 1, Doug Dubach, Yamaha rider number 15. The story of Kenworthy Park, moto number 1, though, was Jeff Stanton and Jean-Michel Bayle. Bayle would end up in the number 5 position. Had Stanton been able to stay upright, had Stanton been able to win the moto, then Bayle would have been dropped back one more position to 6th. 6th place is worth 15 points. To win, you get 25. The difference of 10 points, it would have been tied going into moto number 2. Instead, in the closing moments of moto number 1, Jeff Stanton was passed by Jean-Michel Bayle. Bayle would take the number 5 position. Stanton would end up 6th. Here's a look at the leaderboard in the closing laps. Larry Ward still out front. Matasovic running in the number 2 position. That was rider number 10. That was Larry Ward. There's number 7. That's Matasovic. Running in the number 3 spot, rider number 15 is Doug Dubach aboard the Yamaha. These 3 riders are enjoying their best outing of the year. Don't forget, 3 of the top contenders are out of it in this moto. Jean-Michel Bayle currently running in the number 5 position. Jeff Stanton is injured, running back in 6th, and already pulled off the racetrack, Damon Bradshaw. Here we are on the last lap of this slick Kenworthy racetrack. Mike LaRocco, rider number 6 on the Suzuki, and Jean-Michel Bayle, JMB, the 2-time world champion, aboard the blood red Honda, rider number 8, giving chase. They would battle this way right up to the checkered flag. Bayle keeping the pressure on, LaRocco handling it with ease. Again, this is the battle for the number 4 position. LaRocco is in it. Bayle wants it. Bayle still looking for his first overall event of the season. In the back of his mind, he has to be thinking, finish strong, finish as hard as you possibly can. It could come right here. Down to the wire. this battle for the number 1 spot. Larry Ward, rider number 10. Jeff Matasevich, rider number 7. That's 1-2 in the point standings. Again, we're looking at last lap action in round number 6 of the 250cc National Championship Series. Back to the battle with LaRocco and Bale. There was action all over this racetrack throughout the moto. Bale went wide as they head toward the checkered flag. Mike LaRocco keeps it on the inside. He takes all of the good lines. He puts Bale out in the rough stuff to try to take advantage of any kind of a slip, and there LaRocco made one. Bale had gone wide, tried to square off on the inside. Did he get the job done? He did side by side momentarily, but LaRocco emerged with the lead. The drive for the checkered flag, and there it is. Larry Ward takes it. Jeff Matasevich finishes in the number 2 position. There's Doug Dubach in 3rd. Here's the battle for the number 4 slot. It looks like Bale, but LaRocco at the last second squeaks by on the inside, and he is going to hang on for 4th. What a tough fought moto. Bale gets 5th. Outstanding action in moto number 1. The second moto was all Jean-Michel Bale, with Jeff Matasevich taking his second place of the afternoon. That was good enough to give him overall honors for the day. Larry Ward finished 4th. He was 2nd overall. Then came Bale in points for 3rd overall. Doug Dubach with another 3rd place finish was 4th overall. Here are the point standings after 6 rounds. Only Stanton has a mathematical run at the title. He's 36 points down. He's going to need some kind of break in the season finale to win the championship. Round 7, Southwick, Massachusetts, the final race of the 1991 250cc National Championship Series. For Jean-Michel Bale, a 6th place finish in moto number 1 would lock up the championship. Anything in addition to 6th place was pure gravy. The field was set. They were chomping at the bit and ready to go. Jeff Stanton from the middle of the pack lined up next to Jeff Ward. Damon Bradshaw was behind that pair as the field thundered toward corner number 1. A couple of riders down, back in the pack, none of them major players for the championship series. Another crash, this one deep into the corner. Mike LaRocco, rider number 6 out of LaPorte, Indiana, aboard the Suzuki. He was up and away, but out of contention. The early lead had gone to rider number 3, Jeff Ward. Damon Bradshaw back in the woods, overhauled Ward to take over the number 1 position. The rest of the field was Jean-Michel Bale stuck in the middle of the pack, followed. Bradshaw out front setting a blistering pace. Right behind in the number 2 spot. He quickly moved into 2nd. He had to pass Jeff Ward. To do that was Jeff Stanton, the defending champion. Stanton was still looking for maximum points. Stanton would go all the way for the win, hoping that Jean-Michel Bale would suffer some kind of mechanical problem back in the pack. Now that's Jeff Matasevich. He's doing a little suffering of his own as he tried to pick the Kawasaki up. Forgot to pull a clutch in. And of course the motorcycle squirted out from underneath him. Matasevich tumbling in the early going. He was all right up and at him as Mike LaRocco got back into the action. And there was the pass. Jeff Stanton with a handful of throttle through one of the roughest parts of this extremely rough racetrack. Overhauled Bradshaw, taking over the number 1 position. Stanton, with 3 overall wins to his credit heading into this season finale, was looking for one more. He'll make it an even 4 to top off the year. Bradshaw with 1 overall win to his credit. Rider number 11, he too is looking for bonus money and extra points in this season finale of the 250 championship race. Final lap, Jeff Stanton is all alone out front. He'll take the checkered flag. He'll take one more overall victory on the season as he came back to win moto number 2. Jean-Michel Bale would finish in the number 4 position. All he needed was 6 to wrap up the title, so the title was his without even starting in moto number 2. Bale would, however, finish in the runner-up position in that second moto. So Jean-Michel Bale, the Frenchman with 2 world championships to his credit, wins his first ever U.S. national title. Stanton finished 2nd, Damon Bradshaw 3rd. The following week, it was on to Millville, Minnesota, Spring Creek Motocross Park, and the opening round of the 500cc National Championship Series. For Jeff Stanton, he had to be thinking, this one has got to go my way. This one has got to be different. Stanton has long been considered one of the premier 500cc riders in the United States, but has never won that title. Would 1991 be any different? We'll see as the season unfolds. We're watching the start of moto number 2. Damon Bradshaw took the hole shot. Rider number 11, he's out front on an air-cooled Yamaha. Running in the number 2 position, rider number 2, that's Jeff Stanton. 3rd place, the property of Jean-Michel Bale. In the opening moto, Bale was the easy winner over Damon Bradshaw in the number 2 position, with Jeff Stanton third. Fourth went to Jeff Ward, the defending 500cc national champion. In the opening moto, Jean-Michel Bale took the hole shot. Bradshaw made the pass to take over the number 1 position. Bale followed him for a lap and a half, then regained the lead, then motored away from the rest of the field. Here in moto number 2, a little different story, as Damon Bradshaw out of the gate took the lead, being pressured by Jeff Stanton. But Bradshaw holds that charge off to retain the number 1 position. Stanton running second, running in the number 3 spot, just watching what's happening in front of him, the newly crowned 250 national champ, Jean-Michel Bale, also the winner of moto number 1. Just off the pace, right behind that leading trio, comes the green Kawasaki with the number 1 plate on it. There he is coming into the picture. That is the defending 500cc national champion, Jeff Ward. Now look at the drive that Stanton got out of that last corner as he took over the number 1 position. That shoves Bradshaw, at least momentarily, back into the number 2 spot. So Stanton out front, Bradshaw now running second in this very rough Millville track. Back into number 3 position, Jean-Michel Bale. Ward still holding down 4th. Now watch what happens in this sand section coming up. Bale is in 3rd. Watch, right there, he stalled his bike. Going into 3rd was Jeff Ward. Let's take another look at that incident, and I think you'll see it in slow motion. Now watch just to the left of your screen. Here comes Damon Bradshaw. He's in 2nd, and there is Bale in 3rd. The camera's going to pan with Bradshaw, but Bale stops right there. So he drops back to the number 4 position, considerably off the pace. Not for long, though. Jean-Michel Bale was made to ride 500cc machines. He bounces back and quickly makes up all the ground that he lost. Here he is hounding Damon Bradshaw, who is now in the number 3 position. Jeff Ward has moved up to take the number 2 spot away from Bradshaw. So it's Stanton out front, and here's Bale making the pass. Jeff Ward running 2nd, Jean-Michel Bale just moving into 3rd, Damon Bradshaw back and forth. There is Ward just disappearing from view off the left side of your screen. We should point out that in an earlier incident during one of the heat races, one of the qualifying rounds, Jeff Matasevich from Team Kawasaki crashed hard and broke his femur on one of the rough portions of this racetrack. Matasevich has been taken to the hospital, and it is expected that Matasevich will miss not only the remainder of the 1991 season, but most of the 1992 season as well. The femur is the large thigh bone, and that is probably the worst bone that a rider can break in his leg. Jeff Ward, meanwhile, has dropped back to 3rd. Jean-Michel Bale out of sight of our camera. The back portion of this rough track in Millville, Minnesota, has taken over the number 2 position and is closing on Jeff Stanton, who has led almost since the outset of moto number 2. There is the gap between them with just a few laps remaining. About 5 or 6 seconds at this point. Still holding 3rd, the defending national champ, Jeff Wardy Ward, rider number 1 aboard that green Kawasaki. The gap is narrowing. There it is. There's your leader, Jeff Stanton. Right behind him comes Jean-Michel Bale. They are ripping this Millville racetrack apart. Backside, Bale draws even with Stanton. Stanton is not going to let him make the pass if he can help it, and Stanton has nothing to say about it. Jean-Michel Bale with an outstanding move goes to the outside to take over the number 1 position, and I have to say at this point that Jeff Stanton is a defeated rider. He was going just as hard as he possibly could. It was not hard enough. Bale came from well off the pace to catch Stanton, make the pass, and he'll take the checkered flag to win both motos of the opening round of the 500cc Championship Series. Jeff Stanton will hold on to finish in the number 2 position. That's going to garner him overall honors for the day, the position of 2nd. He's 8 points down after 1 round. 3rd place goes to Bradshaw. He'll be 10 points down in the standings, then Ward, then Ron Lechien. Round 2 of the 6th race 500cc National Championship Motocross Series was at Washougal Park, Washougal, Washington. Located in the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by pine trees and mountains, the Washougal track is one of the most beautiful and challenging in the United States. The Washougal event always draws a huge crowd. 1991 was no exception. The weather was absolutely perfect for motocross. Let's pick up the action as the gate drops for moto number 1 at Washougal Motocross Park. Thundering down the long straightaway, a right-hander. It's Jeff Ward, rider number 3. On the outside, it's Damon Bradshaw. Bradshaw got the drive into the second corner. He just simply held it on a little longer than Ward to take over the number 1 position. So it's Bradshaw leading with Jeff Ward in second, but not for long. Jeff Ward got the drive coming out of the 4th corner, and he takes over the number 1 position. Jeff Ward running second. Right behind him comes a pair of Honda riders. You know who that has to be: Jeff Stanton and Jean-Michel Bayle. Let's pick up the action a few laps into the race. It's still Jeff Ward out front. Damon Bradshaw is no longer among the leaders. Running in a number 2 position, rider number 8 is the series points leader, Jean-Michel Bayle. Holding down third, Jeff Stanton. Back in 4th place, starting to drop slightly off the pace, Damon Bradshaw aboard the Yamaha. Earlier conversations in the pits indicated that this might well be a pivotal race in the 500cc National Championship Series. The series is only 6 races long. If Bayle was able to charge to the front, as he did in Minnesota, if he was able to take another pair of moto wins, would that pretty much spell doom for the rest of the class? Out front, Jeff Ward was having none of that kind of talk. Ward had won in Washougal on 4 other occasions. It was his favorite racetrack. But look at this. Jean-Michel Bayle, throwing caution to the wind, took over the number 1 position, dropping Ward back to second, with Jeff Stanton in 3rd. The cards were being played just as they were in Minnesota. Jean-Michel Bayle was leaving the rest of the field in his wake in his 500cc championship chase. Through the trees and the valleys, Washougal, Washington, Jeff Stanton managed to overhaul Ward to move into the number 2 position. Still, it was Jean-Michel Bayle out front. The question now became, did Stanton wait too long to make his move? Would he have enough left to catch Jean-Michel Bayle? Could he catch Jean-Michel Bayle? As the laps began to wind down, that question was answered. Stanton drew to the rear wheel of Bayle and issued a challenge. Bayle was quick to respond. He grabbed a handful of throttle and reopened the lead to about 5, let's make that 6 bike lengths. Stanton, though, refused to give up. Both riders were on the edge as they rocketed around this Washougal Park motocross track, up over the top with a big infield jump. Bayle took a quick look behind him, and all he saw was the number 2 on the number plate of Jeff Stanton's Honda. With the crowd cheering both riders on, Stanton still hot in pursuit, Bayle not able to pull away. Now Stanton gets an incredible drive through one of the roughest parts of the racetrack. He goes to the inside. Will he make the pass? Yes, but watch this. Bayle comes right back underneath Stanton and regains the number 1 position. This was some kind of race, moto number 1 in the 500cc National Championship. Here is a replay. Now watch this. Stanton gets an incredible drive and a good line. Bayle sees him coming, and Bayle just hits the brakes, squares the corner off, and squirts to the inside of Stanton with a handful of throttle and drag races Stanton to the corner. He gets there first. In the closing laps, Bayle lengthened his lead over Jeff Stanton. He'll take the easy win in moto number 1. Stanton will finish in the number 2 position with Jeff Ward 3rd. In the final moto of the day, it was all Jeff Ward. For the 5th time at Washougal and the 32nd time in his career, Ward won a national championship event. Stanton finished in the number 2 position. Jean-Michel Bayle was 3rd. Round 3, Broome Tioga, Binghamton, New York. After 2 rounds of 500cc National Championship racing, Jean-Michel Bayle was on top with 95 points. Stanton was close behind with 86. Then came Ward with 83. Bradshaw had 76, rounding out the top 5. Ron Lechien with 64. At Broome Tioga, the riders are on the starting line, set to go. We'll watch action from moto number 1. Rider number 100 is Lechien. Right next to him, number 1 is Jeff Ward. And would you believe the veteran, 2 times a 500cc national champ, Jeff Ward, is going to squeak by on the inside and for the 2nd consecutive week take control of the 500cc class. Running in a number 2 position was Damon Bradshaw, rider number 11 on the Yamaha. Up front and ready to challenge Jean-Michel Bayle, Jeff Stanton, Doug Dubach, Ron Lechien. They were all in the first group of riders and set to do damage at Broome Tioga. The eyes of the crowd, though, were out front as Jeff Ward continues to parade around the Broome Tioga track, holding down that number 1 spot. In third place, Jean-Michel Bale now challenges at the rear wheel of Damon Bradshaw. Ward opened up about a 4, maybe 5 bike length lead in the early going of Moto number 1, but Bradshaw, Bale, and Stanton were not far behind. Doug Dubach was running in a number 5 position with Ron Lechien 6th. Now Bradshaw starts to close on Jeff Ward. The pressure is on. Can the veteran hold down that number 1 slot? He's going to need every race, every point in every moto in this 6-race series to be a factor in the national championship chase. It's still Ward out of San Juan Capistrano holding down the number 1 position. Bradshaw coming out of Mooresville, North Carolina. He's just a teenager, 18 years of age, and he is giving the veterans fits. Opening moto action at Broome Tioga. Bradshaw squirts to the inside, and he takes over the number 1 position. Ward drops back to second. And look at this, Jean-Michel Bale dropped his Honda to the ground. Now, Bale was quickly up and back into it. He did, however, lose a considerable amount of time to the leaders. How many times have we seen this season Bale in similar situations? In the 250 class, in the 500 class. Bale did it just 1 week ago, stalled his motorcycle in a big sand stretch, lost a lot of time, but picked it up, not only caught the leaders, went on to make the pass and take control of the moto and win it going away. That's the kind of rider Bale is, and everything has been going Bale's way this season. Damon Bradshaw right now having things his way. He's moving through traffic, passing a couple of slower riders. Bradshaw out front is still being hounded by Jeff Ward in the number 2 position. Bradshaw will go on to take the win in Moto number 1, followed by Jeff Ward. Finishing 3rd will be Jean-Michel Bale. Jeff Stanton will finish 4th. In the second moto, Jean-Michel Bale was the winner, with Stanton running 2nd. Jeff Ward 3rd, and running in a number 4 position was Ron Lechien. Here are the point standings after 3 rounds. Bale on top with 140. Then in number 2 position was Stanton with 126, 125 for Jeff Ward. It's on to Steel City, USA, just on the edge, the outer edge, if you will, of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for round 4 of the 500cc National Championship Series. The action we'll watch is from the opening moto. Riders are on the line, some 40 strong, waiting for the gate to drop. This very long Steel City racetrack. In the middle, rider number 2 is Jeff Stanton. To his left, screen right, Jeff Ward, and Ward will take the hole shot. He has dominated hole shots in his 500cc National Championship Series. There's Ward running in 2nd now. Jeff Stanton, 3rd place, off the line, a property of Damon Bradshaw. Then comes Ron Lechien, rider number 100, on the comeback trail. And right behind Lechien, putting all the pressure on, is Jean-Michel Bale, the series points leader. Bale looking for passing room. Lechien not giving way, but Lechien breaks. Bale leaves it on. He goes to the outside and makes the pass. Bale has taken over the number 4 position. Jeff Ward, the overall winner at Washougal, Washington, looking for his 2nd overall win of the season. Jean-Michel Bale has already collected a pair. No other rider has overall honors in this 500cc class. It's Ward out front. He's still followed by Stanton, Bradshaw, then Jean-Michel Bale. JMB putting the pressure on. Ron Lechien dropping back to the number 5 position. Now Bale gets a drive to the inside of Damon Bradshaw, and he takes that spot away from the teenager from Mooresville, North Carolina. On the opposite end of that spectrum is the veteran Jeff Ward. Ward has won here at Steel City for the last 2 years. He's looking to make it 3 in a row, and that would give him, it would tie him rather, with Jean-Michel Bale, 2 overall victories apiece. Right now, Bale is working on the rear wheel of his teammate, Jeff Stanton. Stanton has held down the number 2 position since the drop of the gate, but here comes JMB, Jean-Michel Bale. He makes the pass on the outside. He found a line where there was none and takes over the number 2 position. Bale will now set his sights on Jeff Ward. Can he catch the fleeing Kawasaki rider? Well, inside of 1 lap, he closes the distance between the 2 of them and now has Ward in his sights. A downhill section takes him into the lower portion, the middle part of this racetrack at Steel City. Bale will study the lines of Jeff Ward. He will look for some kind of passing room, a portion of the racetrack. And look there, Jean-Michel Bale cut across the front of Jeff Ward to take over the lead. I don't know how he did that without the 2 riders colliding. Ward came right back, good and hard, strong, but to no avail. They were side by side through 2 corners and about 100 yards of this Steel City racetrack, but Bale comes out on top. He takes over the number 1 position in Moto number 1. But watch what happens. Perhaps Bale relaxes just a little too much. Watch this corner. All by himself, Bale goes down. Ward sees it. He goes way to the outside the line in the groove to make the pass, and he again moves to the number 1 position. Question now becomes, will Jean-Michel Bale settle for that number 2 spot, or will he try to reel Ward back in to regain the lead? Ward is giving it everything that he can possibly give it, but Jean-Michel Bale has again closed the gap. Look at this. For the second time today, Bale is putting the pressure on Jeff Ward. The defending 500cc national champ looks to his right, but Bale is way out to his left. I don't know that Ward even knows he's there. He does now. He can hear the engine, the powerful engine of that Honda revving as Bale pulled alongside the Kawasaki of Jeff Ward. A good line through the corner for Ward, but Jean-Michel Bale squared the corner off, went to Ward's inside to make the pass. It was an unbelievable move to regain the number 1 position. It's the second time today that Ward has been in this spot, having been passed by Jean-Michel Bale, and also the second time that Bale has taken over the lead. My guess is you will not see another mistake from Jean-Michel Bale. He just does not make too many, let alone 2 in a row. So Bale is going to go on and take the win in Moto number 1. He'll be followed across the line by Jeff Ward in the number 2 position. Third place will go to Jeff Stanton, and fourth will be the property of Damon Bradshaw. Overall honors for the day, though, will go to Jeff Ward, as in Moto number 2. Ward took the win almost wire to wire. Jean-Michel Bale will finish in the number 3 position in that moto. Jeff Stanton finishes second, so they gain just a couple of points on Jean-Michel Bale. Bale still with a commanding points lead after 4 of 6 rounds. Both Bale and Ward have won a pair of 500cc national championship events in this 1991 season. 4 motos remained. We go now to round 5 at Budds Creek, Maryland, Budds Creek Motocross Park. Temperatures in the low 60s and overcast sky, a perfect day for motocross. We're looking at the lineup for moto number 2. First moto was history. Jean-Michel Bale won it. Finishing in the number 2 position was Jeff Ward. Third place went to Jeff Stanton, with fourth the property of Damon Bradshaw. In the opening laps of moto number 1, Jean-Michel Bale was slightly off the pace. Before it was over, though, he had total control. Moto number 2, a different story for the Frenchman. He took the whole shot from the drop of the gate, followed by Damon Bradshaw, and this has the makings of a Jean-Michel Bale runaway. But watch what happens. Still on the opening lap, you have to keep your eye on Damon Bradshaw, who is running in the number 2 position. Watch as the pair of front runners head uphill. Bradshaw, about 5 bike lengths behind, goes through the rough part of the racetrack, just keeps it dialed in. He goes to the inside of Bale, took the good line away. Bale had nowhere to go coming out of that corner. Bradshaw takes over the number 1 spot. Bale back at second. Holding down third was Jeff Ward. Gene Newmack running in a number 4 position. Then came Jeff Stanton in 5th. Still in the early going, here comes Jeff Ward to challenge Jean-Michel Bale in the number 2 position. Watch Bale as he makes this corner. Bale has a serious bobble, almost goes down. He saved it at the last moment. He did, though, allow Jeff Ward to squirt by on the inside, but Bale recovers quickly before a lap of the racetrack has gone by. In fact, let's make that before 200 yards of the racetrack has gone by. Bale regains the number 2 position in the standings in moto number 2. Jeff Ward not about to give up. Ward tries to get a good inside line, some kind of a drive on Jean-Michel Bale. No dice. Bale is able to control the situation. Lines change on virtually every lap of this Budds Creek racetrack. A rider goes to 1 position on 1 lap. He tries that same position the next time around, that same line, and it's changed. It's no longer the good way. He might have to move over 2, maybe even 3 foot. It's rather soft, and the lines continually shift. And right now, Jeff Ward seems to be finding the better lines better than Jean-Michel Bale. But Ward goes to the outside, and he bogs down momentarily. Bale is able to control the number 2 position in the standings in moto number 2. Out front, remember, is still Damon Bradshaw. Closing stages of moto number 1, and there is Bradshaw, rider number 11, followed by Jean-Michel Bale. Still in third, it's Jeff Ward. Watch this uphill section. There's a jump right in the middle of it. Bradshaw and Bale, 2 singles. Look at this. Ward doubles all the way to the top of that jump. It gained a tremendous amount of time for the veteran. He was not in position to pass, but again, he drew close to the rear wheel of the leaders. And this time, Bale is the one that makes the pass. Bradshaw has to drop back to second. Jean-Michel Bale takes over the lead in the closing stages. Ward still running in third. Now, don't forget, we're looking at action in Moto number 2. Jean-Michel Bale was the winner of the opening moto, followed by Jeff Ward. Ward finished second. Third place went to Stanton. Fourth place, Damon Bradshaw. Fifth place in the opening moto went to Gene Newmack from Brooksville, Florida. Damon Bradshaw not giving up. Here goes Bradshaw to the outside, looking for some kind of room, some kind of running room to make a move on Jean-Michel Bale. A lap rider momentarily in between Bale and Bradshaw. You have to figure that cost Bradshaw a couple of bike lengths. It's going to be of no avail when this one is over. Jean-Michel Bale is going to take the win as Bradshaw drops further off the pace. Bradshaw is going to finish in the number 2 position. For Jean-Michel Bale, it will be his third overall win of the season. With 1 round remaining, he's going to pad his points lead even more. 235 to Jeff Ward's 214. Stanton has 206, then Bradshaw and Ron Lachine. 1 round remaining in the 500cc National Championship Series. Unadilla Valley, New York. Unadilla Valley Sports Center is the site. No question about it, this is the number 1 track in the United States. Ask any motocross fan on either coast that has ever been here. He'll quickly tell you that this is not only the toughest, it is the most spectacular racetrack in the country. The gate has dropped and action is underway. This is the second moto. Sean Kalos is going to emerge as the leader in this one. Now, Damon Bradshaw temporarily out in front, but watch Sean Kalos, number 911, aboard a privateer Kawasaki. He also led moto number 1. He's going to be the leader in this one. Bradshaw thinks everything is going his way. Watch what happens. Bradshaw goes wide. Kalos goes to the inside. And there's a big gulch coming up, and Kalos is going to dive to the bottom of that gulch in the number 1 position. Now, Sean Kalos is a privateer, rider number 911. He is sporting that big number only because he spent most of the 1990 season in Europe. He was not able to earn enough points to have a nationally recognized number here in the United States. He is a tough rider, an excellent rider. His best days are still ahead of him. He continues to improve each race he rides in. Kalos leading the best in the business right now with Damon Bradshaw on this tough Unadilla track running in the number 2 position. Jean-Michel Bale, meanwhile, slightly off the pace, has a clear mission in front of him. After moto number 1 of this Unadilla event, the final round of the series, he is 18 points ahead of Jeff Ward. All he has to do now is finish in an upright position, and he'll coast home to the championship. That's just exactly what he wants to do. Kalos has been passed by Bradshaw. He came right back and repassed Bradshaw. David Bradshaw has to be wondering, where did this guy come from? He's not been a factor all year. I've been racing with Jeff Stanton. I've been racing with Bale. I've been racing with Jeff Ward, but I've not seen Sean Kalos. And right now, Kalos is taking the measure of Damon Bradshaw. Now, behind Bradshaw and behind Kalos, in fact, well out of reach of the front-running duo, sits the key to the 1991 500cc National Championship. That, of course, is Jean-Michel Bale. Keeps it upright. He collects just a few points. In fact, all he needs is 2, and he'll walk away with this championship season. Right now, he's sitting in a 5th or 6th position, and that's going to be enough. Meanwhile, Sean Kalos, number 911, out of Litchfield Park, Arizona, continues to lead the best in the business. Running in a number 2 position is Bradshaw. Stanton running 3rd. 4th place, the property of rider number 1. That's the defending 500cc national champ, Jeff Ward, out of San Juan Capistrano. Here comes Stanton and Ward makes the pass. Ward goes into the number 3 position. Jeff Ward has been riding like a teenager instead of the 29-year-old rider that he is. And now look at this. Both Stanton and Ward have moved ahead of Bradshaw. Ward to the number 2 spot and Stanton to 3rd. Bradshaw back to 4th. And they now are chasing Sean Kalos, number 911, out of Litchfield Park, Arizona, the privateer aboard the Kawasaki. He has taken everything that the veterans could throw at him, the number 1 riders in the world. He's taken it and spit it back at them. Let's see what Jeff Ward can do with Sean Kalos. They're headed again across the top portion of the racetrack. They'll dive into this long sinking cavity. There goes Ward to the inside, and you saw Ward reach up as he takes over the #1 spot. You saw him reach up and tug something. What he was doing was advancing the film system on his goggles. When his vision is blurred, he reaches up and pulls a string like a Venetian blind string, and it advances a piece of film, celluloid film, across the front of his goggles, and that in effect gives him a cleansing job. It's like stopping at the gas station and having him splash water on you and say, hey, just do my windshield, and Bradshaw goes down. Damon Bradshaw had worked back to the #2 position. Around that right-hand corner in that soft, loamy Unadilla dirt, the motorcycle got away from him, and Bradshaw just slid out in the corner. The motorcycle stalled. He's going to get going again, and he does. Now, it's doubtful whether or not, even if Bradshaw is passed because of that crash, that anything will affect his overall position in the standings of the series. It could drop Bradshaw down a position or two in the standings of the event, but he's pretty well secured in 4th place for the championship point standings. Jeff Stanton, you saw, did get by Bradshaw. He'll finish in the #2 position. Winning the moto, Jeff Ward. That'll give him his 3rd win of the year, tying him with Jean-Michel Bayle in that category. Here are the final series standings. Is Jean-Michel Bayle coming out on top, Jeff Ward in 2nd place. Jeff Stanton finishes in the #3 position, then Bradshaw, then Ron Lechien. And that wraps up the 1991 Outdoor National Championship Motocross Series. Here comes the rider that did most of the damage. He won the 250cc title earlier this year with a 5th place finish at Unadilla. He has sewn up the 1991 500cc crown, being congratulated by hordes of well-wishers. Roger DeCoster on the right. Dave Arnold, the Honda team manager, was one of the first to reach Jean-Michel Bayle to say congratulations, an outstanding job on an outstanding season. Bob Hanna is with Bayle in the pits.
We're here with Jean-Michel Bayle, a Frenchman that did something that nobody from the U.S. has ever done, won 3 championships in 1 year. How's it feel?
No, I feel very good. You know, the first thing was, you know, my first goal was to win the Supercross, and still won the 250 National and tried to get the 500. And, you know, I finished the season with 3 championships, so I'm very happy.
And with that, the 1991 National Championship Motocross season comes to a close. Jean-Michel Bayle was the big winner, winning both the 250 and 500.